My name is Steve, and I make the coolest things with paper. Lately, I've been scrolling non-stop, trying to come up with my next masterpiece, and all I keep seeing on my For You page are these Clash Royale edits. So you know what? I'm gonna give this a go. I'm gonna make a couple of these characters, because honestly, why not? Now, the concept to begin any sculpture is to start with a head, so I make said head by poking two holes into a paper ball wrapped in tape, and push two smaller paper balls into said hole to make the eyes, a quick twisted up paper for the mouth and the nose for breathing. Once done, I add on a thin sheet of tape for the eyelids and cut off the excess. More paper is glued on for the wrinkles, along with the forehead on top and the chin on the bottom. Both look good and I can wrap them up in tape. Two big bulging eyebrows along with a mustache, a beard and some hair to give them the iconic look. I can then cut out the ears and glue them to the side of the head. Some layers of paper are wrapped in tape, rolled up on itself and cut into to make the crown. I cut out any excess and glue on another layer to the bottom to make the base. Some squares are then cut out, bent 45 degrees and glued to said crown, and said crown gets glued to said head. Following with a block of paper that then gets wrapped in tape for the body along with the arms, and after that's cut into the required length, I glue on the sleeves. The fingers are simply cut out and glued to a smaller block of paper attached into the sleeve, then to the body. Once concealed in tape, a cylinder-shaped piece of paper acts as the pants, followed by the shoes that I make by way of making shoes. A square sheet of tape goes on for detail, and I can cut out each shoe and assemble everything together, carving into another layer of tape. Then adding more layers to the edges, and refining said edges, I get the robe. I believe that's what it's called. I'm not bothered to look it up. A crown is outlined by thin lines of paper to create the belt buckle. I can then cut out the cape and make the golden necklace on said cape. The robe is glued to the front, while the belt wrapped around the waist, followed by the buckle. Some holes are made into the belt, and then I can attach the cape along with the head. So, to keep the video short as possible, I'm not going to be repeating steps that are similar. I'll just show the end product and continue from there. After finishing the princess's head, I cut out a little crown and glue it to her head, wrapping the body in tape, adding a neck and attaching both together. That part's done. Next, I add on a collar, then build a substructure that acts as support, so that when I cover it in tape, it gains that armored look. Next, I glue more paper together, cover it in tape and add a ring to the top to make the puff sleeves. Following up with sheets of tape rolled onto themselves to form a cone. I cut out fingers, glue them to a palm, attach a hand to the cone, cover it in tape and cut into it to reveal the gloves. Twisted up paper can be bent into a bow shape, and a thin sheet of tape wraps around the middle section. I cut out triangles and glue them to twisted up paper to make the arrows. After attaching them to the arm, I wrap more paper around the ends of the bow to create the strings. Now I need something to hold the rest of the arrows. So I roll up some paper, cover it in tape, seal the bottom and add an extra layer to the top. To make the chain skirt, I hammer a pen against a sheet of paper, cut into the required shape, attach both ends and glue it to the body. A layer of tape acts as the belt with a crown for the buckle. The legs start off as usual. After wrapping them in tape, I bend the end to form the feet and add a sheet of tape around the shank. I looked it up, and that's the part between the knee and the ankle. With both boots made, I can put everything together and start making the mobs. Starting with half-made skeleton heads that I can add teeth to. Then I twist up more paper and layer tape across to form the spine. Once it's cut, I bend it into shape and glue on the head. Extra paper is glued to the side and curved to make the ribs. The scapulars are covered in tape, then I attach the clavicle and glue it to the back. Next, I glue on the hip bone and shape similar bones for the arms, legs, hands and feet. Oh, and I also made little swords too. Once everything is ready, I put it all together. The next mob are the goblins. A head gets magically wrapped in tape, and I cut out pointy ears to glue on the sides. All the goblins are looking good, and I can lather on some eyebrows. The body starts off as usual, but this time I can add on some extra fat to the belly and chest, then conceal in tape. For the legs, I glue on a block of paper to the underside so I can easily attach them on. A line of paper goes around the waist and knees to form the pants. I create the shoes on the lower legs, then gluing paper to paper, then covering it in tape. Honestly, I don't know how one's supposed to narrate this process. Once that's done, I attach both sections together and finally glue on the head. Some strands of paper are glued for the hands, then wrapped in tape and cut into shape. Next, I make a sword by forming a handle and connecting it to a blade. The blade goes on the arm and the arm connects to the shoulders. A little more bulk to the shoulders, a few straps to hold up the pants, some buckles, and that's done. Next, 2 blocks of paper get wrapped in tape. I attach an eye to the head and line it up with tape. A hexagon-shaped piece of tape goes on both sides of the head, followed by some horns. Arms go on the sides of the body, and I line the armor with strips of paper before covering everything up in tape. Tiny pieces of tape form these questionable things on the chest, and a half circle goes on top before I glue on the head. I add on some shoulder pads to the shoulder and the skirts to the underside. The hands are made by gluing on pieces of tape till they resemble Mini Pekka's hands. His hand armor goes on next, then the legs, the feet, and of course his sword. Another face gets covered in tape and I add a tongue and some facial hair for recognition. This time, for the body, I bulk up the chest, cover it in tape, and add toes to the feet, cut them in shape, then wrap tape around and underneath to form the sandals. I glue the feet, the lower legs, then the upper legs, and finally attach them to the body. A layer of tape circles around to make the skirt, followed by a belt around the waist. Fingers get glued to the palm to form the hand. A block of paper is covered in layers of tape with a few bolts added for detail, along with a handle. The handle attaches to the block, and then I add the wristbands. Once that's done, everything gets glued together. His ride follows up. A pig's face crafted into existence with a tongue, tucks and ears to finish the look, 2 balls of paper to form the body, which I bulk up before crafting the legs, hooves and tail. A strand of tape wraps around the tucks so the rider doesn't fall off, and that's done, and off to the next. Starting with a half face, I add a beard and a mustache, then begin crafting the helmet, cutting, measuring, gluing, and attaching tape to tape until I get something resembling a knight's helmet. The helmet goes on the head along with the feathery ornaments on top. The body is covered in textured tape, followed by a belt and buckle. The armor structure is crafted, wrapped in tape, and finished with a textured collar before I attach the head. Strips of textured tape goes onto the sides, and I craft the gloves by cutting pieces of tape, gluing them back together and attaching them to the arm, then to the body. Handle gets glued to a cone, then to a long tube. I swirl some tape around it, cut out a flag shape, adding another cone to the top. Next, I make a set of little shoes for the legs, and once that's glued on, it's time to create his mighty steed. A horse's nose is attached to its face, along with a mouth. Then I add the neck and body. The body gets fleshed out, and I add a bit of chest hair. Ears follow, then the hooves, which get glued to the legs and then to the body. A fine saddle is made off camera, followed by the mane and tail. Once everything's bent into position, I add a bridle and he's ready to ride. The next character gets half its face covered in tape, with 2 extra layers on the sides and another wrapped around the head. The empty spaces get filled out, along with 4 bolts. His visor goes on next, followed by 2 bolts to hold it in place. The armor finally takes shape, crafted with thicker lines of paper and then magically covered in tape. The head goes on, followed by textured sleeves and the skirt. A belt wraps around the waist. I cut into it to get the required length and add on a buckle. Next, I attach a circular piece of paper to a ball of paper, then add 5 pyramids to form the maces. The maces are attached to the hand, then to the shoulders. The shoes are made in the same usual way, but this time I add more details, some soles underneath and bolts on both sides. The shoes go to the legs to the body, and off to the next. So, once I've made a baby goblin's head off camera, I add his goggles and a strap to hold them in place. A mohawk goes on top and ears to the sides. The head gets glued to the body, and I make gloves next, attaching them to the arms. The body then goes into a bowl, and I start building a metal frame around it. Cutting into a sheet of tape, I plaster the pieces along the sides and add another frame. The empty spaces gets filled with paper and concealed in tape. Holes are poked into the sides for the arm joints. The arms are made by wrapping blocks of paper with sheets of tape and gluing them to the joints. Shoulder pads are crafted with more sheets, their edges layered with tape, and everything is glued together. Protruding ornaments go on various areas to give the eye more to gaze at. The hands are made by layering pieces of tape together until they resemble a robotic hand. The leg pieces start as 2 wheels glued to a cylinder, and the same process used for the arm is repeated for the legs. The feet get decorated with diamond shapes, and everything is glued accordingly. The rocket begins with a base wrapped in tape, a piece added to the back, and a rope at the end for when it needs to be lit. A top goes on, another rope in between, a few bolts for detail, and the rocket's ready to go. Now, once I've gotten Gollum's head figured out, I glue on the upper body, middle section, and rear end. I cut into it to make it less pronounced, then magically cover paper in tape to form the arms, fingers, legs, and feet. More paper gets wrapped in tape and meticulously attach to the back, middle section and shoulders to form the crystals, and with that it's off to the last character. The baby dragon starts off as a skeleton that I wrap in tape. A body gets attached, then a tail, and I can start shaping its little legs. The feet and legs all get attached together, and I add the horns. Once that's done, I glue on said legs. Next come the wings. I attach sheets of paper together, covering them in tape, add membranes and cut them into shape. 2 holes are poked into the shoulders, the wings get attached, and little paper balls become its spines. Now, for something for them to stand on. Start by making a castle, and to make said castle, I build a box using XPS foam. I measure out where the back door will be and cut it out. Then I figure out the measurements for the castle base, adding extra foam to raise the corners. Once that's cut into shape, I move on to the stairs. After covering everything in tape, I add tiny pyramids for protection and start measuring out the balcony. The edges of the balcony gets carved out, and I cut out the crown symbols that go on the front of the castle. The balcony is attached off camera, and I cut a piece for where I want the levers to be. I add extra detail with layers of tape and install the lever. More wrapped up tape pieces are glued together to form the gate. The banner gets outlined along with the crown symbol and the mat, and I glue everything accordingly. Next, I cut and shape more foam to form the top of the castle, adding random bricks to make it more castle-like. The cannons starts as a cylindrical piece. I snip the end, seal it, and once it's covered in tape, I add thin layers around the front, middle, and end sections. A small block helps it stand upright, and then I make the base. Cut into it, wrap more sheets of tape around for detail, and add extra bolts so it looks more practical. Once everything is ready, I glue it all together. Oh, and I made a similar version and glued the staircase to the back. The rest of the cast, everything except the king and princess, gets a plain tile base. Now, to begin painting, I start with a black base coat for everything, followed by various shades of brown, white and grey. I dust everything with a dry brush of grey. More dry brushes for the castles. I also decided to paint the golem, being the biggest piece and one that might take the most time. Once done, I outline the body with a white marker. The base of the castles get painted silver, as do the cannon and the levers. Gold goes on the front symbol and brown on any other part that meant to look like wood. I finish with lighter browns, red banners for the Red King and blue for his counterpart. The golem's crystals start off white, then shift through various blues, getting lighter towards the top. A lighter blue outlines the edges, while the eyes get a magenta shade with touches of pink for the glow. The king gets a light skin tone, black facial hair with a bit of grey, and brown eyes with black pupils and a touch of white for life. His sleeves and pants grey, and the rest of his outfit red or blue. depending on the version. A brown belt, black shoe, and gold on his crown, necklace, shoe, and buckle. The princess starts off as similar, so skipping ahead, her sleeves are painted, her armor black, then silver, the belt black, the bow accidentally black, the quiver, shoes, gloves, and bow are brown. The arrows brown with a gold buckle and crown. The skeletons get a white base coat, a bit of grey between the cracks, and black lifeless eyes, golden sword handles, and silver blades. The goblins get bright green eyes with dark irises and black pupils. A pink skin tone blends into the green around the ears and nose, and the rest of the body gets a green tone. A quick red for the tongue, brighter green for the highlights, dark green eyebrows, brown pants and shoes, red straps and golden buckles. Their swords have golden handles and silver blades. The pig, as usual, gets various shades of pink, white eyes and teeth, a red tongue, and brown hooves. The brown wash adds a detail to the teeth and tusk. Black pupils and a white dot gives it life. The rider gets white eyes and teeth, a dark skin tone, a darker brown mohawk and facial hair, and brighter browns for highlights. His skirt and sandals are light brown, his belt red, irises blue, and pupils black. The hammer handle is brown with different browns and grey throughout, plus golden bracelets and more gold everywhere else. The straps get a brown finish and a bit of white on the hammer for that rocky texture. Before painting the prince, I colored different shades of blue on Pekka's eyes and horns. What you might call his sleeves get painted grey, the rest of his body a light metallic blue, and his sword silver. Now, the prince's steed gets a brown coat, dark brown hooves, and a lighter brown on the nose. His mane, feet, and chest hair get a yellow coat. The saddle and bridle are blue, and his face gets a pink fleshy tone. His beard and mustache are brown, his sleeves and skirt black, his shoes brown. Then I go back and repaint the sleeves and skirt silver. His weapon is silver and blue highlights, the rest of the armor gold, and the piece on his head blue. The baby goblin starts off the same as usual, the green eyes and skin. An orangey tone at the tip of the nose and ears, a purple mohawk, brown straps and gloves, and silver goggles. I paint the top of the machine a metallic finish along with the shoulder joints and the feet. Starting with the first layer of brown, followed by darker brown on the arm and legs, then a lighter brown dry brush. Now, once I've outlined with tape the parts that I want painted blue, I add more brown, paint the rest blue, then remove the tape and paint on the finer blue details. The ropes get a brown tone with black on the tips, and with a green marker I draw on the iconic goblin, and off to the next. The dragon gets green eyes, a fleshy tone for the mouth and tongue, brown irises with black pupils, red fingers, spines and wings. The underbelly gets a darker shade of green, the top half a lighter one. White teeth and a gloss varnish on the eye and the mouth to finish the look. Mega Knight gets the same treatment. His marks is black, his skirt and sleeves silver, the rest of his armor metallic. belt and helmet crest are red, his buckle gold. And with that, I can finally say I'm done, and it's time to get the cameras rolling. Okay, so if you made it to the end, do consider liking and subscribing. It really helps a lot. This project took 3 months to make, so if you could show a bit of love, I'll truly appreciate. I'll probably disappear again until I figure out what to make next. But if you have any ideas, do drop it down in the comments. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next. Cheers.